Welcome new and returning artists. I'm Wyatt Paints, and this week I'm getting prehistoric. My longtime sponsor Super Shark has started a line of Neolithic DC superheroes. So that means I'm gonna get Jurassic, baby. And first up in the lineup is a true old school name. In fact, probably the first old school name. It's the immortal caveman, Vandal Savage, or Monsieur Savage, to my French viewers. While I may not be that familiar with the immortal caveman, that's not going to stop me from getting a great model to put on my shelf. And if you follow along with these basic steps, you'll have a great model for your shelf as well. So, meet me over at the painting table. I'll grab my brushes so we can get started.
With everything primed and ready, I can jump right to where I usually go, the base. And this one's a pretty simple rocky base on a plinth. It's almost like a chess piece, so I'm going to keep that plinth plain black. While that'll be simple, the rocks could use a bit of artistry to add some visual interest, and I've got something in mind. For now, I need a solid medium gray base with uniform gray. To add a bit of contrast to the rocky texture, I thinned down some black ink and washed everything. Even though I start fairly heavy, I go back and pick up any heavy pooling. By the time it dries, I should have some nice shading. Now, for a touch of fantastical whimsy, I mixed ash gray and wilted rose and layered down a whisper light dry brush across the top of the rocks. Watching the paint load will be key to be able to tease these up nice and slowly. Just stop short of them becoming saturated pink, and it should have a nice otherworldly nature. To finish off the base, a quick once over with black marks this as done. Next up is the skin, with a base of fur brown. Now, hopping right to the skin so early in the video is a bit jarring, but due to the scale I printed at, it becomes more helpful to follow the standard mini painting practice. First and foremost, paint inside out. So that means I start with the skin and then work my way out to other things like hair and armor. This should make it a lot easier to paint clean. For a highlight, I loaded up agate skin for a soft bristle dry brush. It really is just that simple. Lightly run this across the fingers and the back of his hand over multiple coats. Just be sure to not let the bristles creep too far between the fingers. The same technique applies to the toes, just a soft brush across. And what do you know? Same thing for the face, except here I used a downward stroke for a light direction. Now that the easy part is done, it's time for the almost easy part of highlighting the muscle. The easy cheat sheet for placement is look for a bulging mass, like a knee or a thigh muscle. Find the highest point of that mass, then starting at that peak, begin blushing up the bump. And you want very little paint on your brush for this. This is why you'll see me check on my hand every so often. Better too light than too much. As my brush starts to get empty on paint, I widen out the area to blend it into the areas that I want to keep shaded. While you do this, keep in mind you want to get full saturation at your highest point and have it evenly drop off. The chest is just a repeat of the same principles. Just follow the shape of each muscle, start at the peak, feather it down to the valleys. Then as the brush empties, blend, blend, blend. Next, I want to finish off the face by dabbing in some company gray for his eyes and matte black for his hair, followed by a deep gray dry brush. If your hands aren't filling up to the task of dotting in those pupils, you can always leave the eyes blank like this. Heck, he's an immortal, so it fits. Moving on to a skirt, Tundra Taupe. This is a slightly greenish brown that is going to help tie in with the turtle shell armor he's wearing on top of it. I leaned into this a bit more by giving it a green tone wash followed by a desert yellow highlight dry brush. Just keep a light touch here. It can be very easy to blow out the green shade and the mid-tone. Moving up to the next layer of the turtle shell armor, I got it going with an angel green base and a medium highlight pass of evergreen fog. This initial highlight can be on the heavy side, as I plan on giving everything a nice shading with green tone. Finally, Panagon Pine as a very light dry brush finished off those scales. Sticking with the chest, Skeleton Bone blocked in all the teeths, while Ancient Tree handled the twine holding them in place. Then, a few touches of light tone finish them off. I kept the deep brown of Ancient Tree on my brush as I slid back down to the waist to fill in the color of the rope. If you practice good brush control, you can scrape the bristles across the peaks, setting up some deep natural looking shadows without needing to do an extra step. I still want to highlight here, so I mixed a touch of Dusty Skull that was still on my palette to whip it up in a jiffy. Again, keeping control of your paint and having a light touch here will make this step a breeze. Sliding down to the legs, corpse pale got dotted in for the toenails. Then deep gray followed by company gray dry brush knocked out the wraps. Then skeletal bone returned to take care of those bones. Moving back to the hands, I quickly filled in the arm guards with deep gray, being sure to keep the hands nice and clean. The color choice here should also help it pair with the leg wraps, but I don't want them looking exactly the same. So I wanted to give these guards a bit more contrast, so they each got a thinned down black wash. And just like the rocks, I used a pretty heavy pass to help the readability and then blotted up any pooling. Once the shade dried, a super light dry brush pass of uniform gray is enough to pick up the frayed details. Next, I went back to Browntown with Ancient Tree to fill in all the wood parts of his spear and torch. All pretty easy peasy. Then the spear got started much like the base with uniform. Then, after a few minutes, Company Gray handled the highlight. Now, the details here, while sharp, are very shallow, so the paint loads need to be super low so that it only gets caught on there. Switching to a brush with softer bristles will also help. I would have grabbed Big Floof, but that would have been a bit too big to control effectively. I know I can be a bit reckless when I paint, but I'm not that reckless. After this, the wrapped handles all got grayed out with the returning world player for this project, Uniform Gray. Then a touch of fur brown took care of the ties that are holding on the head. I think it's important to use a different brown than the one used on the wood, or it's going to look a little too matchy-matchy. Working back down to the gauntlets, these spikes got taken care of using Dusty Skull and a light tone wash for weathering. As a tip to help keep surfaces clean when painting spikes, start your stroke as close to the base as you can and pull the stroke up towards the tip. Then, to get the root, press the brush into the spike a few millimeters above the base, then gently slide it down until it's flush. Then rinse and repeat on all the other spikes. Now for that blazing torch. I need to first lay down some very light gray, and in this case, company gray. As we all know, fire tends to be a range of yellow and oranges, and those colors are pretty much the biggest pain in the butt to get good coverage over black. so it helps immensely to throw down a near white background. Getting a clean near white coat over black is just as big of a pain. As long as I get at least 80% coverage everywhere, it should be fine. Now for the actual flame, I'm going to start with a base of demonic yellow and then work my way up through demigod flames, molten lava, and finally pure red. Because the flames are brighter at the core, a dry brush makes this pretty simple as it can keep the color out of those deeper nooks so that they stay nice and bright yellow. Also, as you move through the colors, you want to restrict them to higher and higher parts of the flame. This is because the colder part of the flame is going to be more red. All that's left to do to finish up this project is his cape. And for Mr. Savage here, he has a thick and fluffy natural fur. Now, I know Batman's gonna have a cape and I'll wanna do that in black. So Savage here is gonna have to go with a grizzly pelt. And that'll be simple enough using a base of ancient tree and a detail highlight of fur brown to catch all the tufts of hair. After a few minutes, the cape was looking on point, so I glued them up and called this one done. And holy sapien, Mr. Savage, you look great. Simple, clean. Oh, I love it. Mr. Savage here is a damn good argument for simple bases, which many of you will know the pain of wanting to print something only to find out it has a ginormous base. I mean, they can be cool if it's full-on diorama or something, but sometimes you want a project that's more of a palette cleanser. And this one threads the needle. But what do you all think? Do you like a simple sculpt every now and then to break up the larger projects? I know I enjoyed the mini vacation. Now, if you want to get your hands on this model, be sure to check out this video sponsor, Super Shark. Their welcome pack for new subscribers is stuffed with STLs to keep your printer working overtime. Heck, you might just find your next project. But as usual, I can't stick around yammering. I gotta get started on the next project. So you know what I'm gonna say. Thanks for watching. Stay creative and always enjoy the process.